All right, let's jump right into a topic. I know you're interested in annuities. You've got that Annuities Explained PDF. And honestly, sometimes it does feel like you need a decoder ring just to understand it?
Yeah.
So we're going to break it all down and see if annuities have a place in your retirement plan. What do you think?
And it's great that you're looking into this now. The financial side of retirement is different than it used to be. The PDF really stresses how people are looking for guaranteed income now, that steady income they used to get from pensions.
Yeah, and that's a big deal for people. That certainty is really appealing. So at their core, what the PDF calls a financial contract boils down to this.
Mhm.
You're giving an insurance company a chunk of change, maybe all at once, maybe over time, and in return, they promise you regular income, usually kicking in when you retire.
That's it in a nutshell. You're giving up some flexibility now in exchange for more security later, which is why when you want that income stream to start matters, that's where the difference between immediate and deferred annuities comes in, as the source material points out.
Makes sense. So if retirement is like right around the corner and you need that income right away, then an immediate annuity would make sense.
Right. But if you're a bit further out from retirement and still building that nest egg, a deferred annuity might be the way to go. Now, what I find interesting and maybe a bit confusing is all the types of annuities this PDF talks about: fixed, variable, indexed. It's a lot.
It really is like trying to pick from a menu of options. Your risk tolerance, how comfortable you are with the ups and downs of the market, is a major factor in figuring out what's the best fit for you. Okay, so let's try to unpack these different flavors. This PDF mentions that fixed annuities come with guaranteed rates of return. On the surface, that sounds pretty good. Is it really that straightforward?
It can be. A fixed annuity is generally the most predictable option. You're basically locking in a specific interest rate for a set amount of time. If you value stability over potentially higher returns and you're not a fan of market volatility, it's definitely a straightforward option.
I can see the appeal in that, especially as you get closer to retirement and want to protect everything you've worked for. But this PDF also talks about variable annuities, where things are tied to market performance, right?
Yeah.
That sounds a little more adventurous.
Definitely. Variable annuities are directly linked to investments like stocks and bonds. And while the PDF highlights the potential for higher returns, there's also the risk of losing money. It's not for everyone, that's for sure.
Okay, so if a fixed annuity is like a leisurely walk in the park and a variable annuity is a roller coaster, where does that leave indexed annuities? The PDF calls them a hybrid. Are they the best of both worlds?
That's the idea, at least. You get a guaranteed minimum return, so even if the market takes a tumble, you have some protection. But you also get to benefit from some market gains, although there's usually a cap.
Okay, so I think I'm starting to get a handle on these different types. But even if you understand how they work, figuring out if one's right for you is a whole other thing. We need to dig into the pros and cons, especially as they relate to your own retirement goals. So we've got a handle on the different flavors of annuities, but how do you know which one, if any, is right for you? This PDF lays out some advantages and disadvantages. Let's weigh those, keeping in mind your personal retirement goals. What are the big selling points here?
The big one this PDF really hits on is that guaranteed income stream. As you get closer to retirement, knowing that you've got that steady income, no matter what the market throws your way, well, that's peace of mind.
And that makes a lot of sense. Knowing exactly what you'll have coming in each month, that would definitely make retirement planning less stressful, wouldn't it? This PDF also mentions tax-deferred growth as a plus. What does that actually mean?
Basically, you only pay taxes on any earnings in your annuity when you actually start taking the money out, which is usually in retirement. That can be a big deal because it means your money can potentially grow much faster than it would in an account that's taxed yearly.
Okay, so it's like giving your money a little turbo boost during those years you're saving up. I like it. But, I mean, no financial product is perfect, right? What about the downsides this PDF mentions?
You're right, it's about finding the right fit for your needs. And one of the big drawbacks this PDF points out is liquidity, or more accurately, the lack of it. With annuities, you're usually locking up your money for a certain amount of time. If you need to get a large sum out before that surrender period is up, you could be hit with some pretty hefty penalties.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's important to think about your other financial goals too before you lock your money away. Retirement should be about enjoying life, not stressing about getting to your own money if you need it.
Absolutely. And even if you think, okay, I'm fine with that trade-off, you really need to understand the fees involved, as the PDF stresses. Annuities can have several different kinds of fees, things like mortality and expense fees, administrative fees, surrender charges. It can be a lot.
Ugh, Fees. Those always feel like the fine print nobody actually reads. But they can really make a difference in your returns, right? What exactly are those mortality and expense fees the PDF mentions?
Well, they're basically how the insurance company covers their costs and makes sure they can pay out to everyone who buys an annuity. The fees are calculated based on things like life expectancy, meaning how long they expect to be making payments to you, and the costs of actually managing the annuity itself. But, these fees, they can be really different from one provider to another.
So it's super important to compare fees from different companies, just like you compare prices on, well, anything else. Now, what about those surrender charges? This PDF makes those sound pretty scary.
Well, they're meant to discourage you from taking your money out early, basically. See, the insurance company is counting on your money being invested for a specific amount of time. So if you decide to take out a big chunk early, those surrender charges kick in, and they're essentially a percentage of the amount you withdraw.
So it really is kind of a financial commitment, and there are consequences if you break that commitment too early. This PDF also mentions something called riders as an important factor to think about. What are riders and how do they play into all this?
Think of riders like options you can add to your annuity contract, kind of like adding toppings to an ice cream sundae. They can give you some extra customization or protection, but they usually come with an extra cost. For example, there's a rider called a guaranteed minimum income benefit, which this PDF explains can guarantee a certain level of income, even if your investments do poorly.
That does sound like it could bring some peace of mind, especially for someone really worried about market ups and downs. But then again, there's that trade-off, right? Additional benefits often mean additional costs. It really does seem like with annuities, so much of it is about deciding what matters most to you, what trade-offs you're comfortable with. But before we go too far down that road, I'm curious, how do annuities fit into the big picture of retirement? Is this like the solution or just one piece of the puzzle?
This PDF is really clear on that annuities are just one element of a well-rounded retirement plan. They can definitely be a valuable part, but it's all about diversification, right? Just like you wouldn't put all your eggs in one basket.
Absolutely not. So we're talking about using annuities alongside things like Social Security, your 401k, maybe even that side hustle you've been thinking about, creating that safety net from different angles.
Exactly. Although I'm sure some people listening are thinking, okay, this sounds too good to be true, right? What's the catch? And to be fair, annuities definitely have their critics.
That's true. Even this PDF mentions some common criticisms, like people saying they're too complex or too illiquid. How do we separate fact from fiction here?
Well, a little healthy skepticism is always a good thing, especially with financial products. And yeah, annuities can be complicated, no doubt about it, all those different types, all the fees, the riders. But that's where having a qualified financial advisor on your team can make all the difference.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, trying to bake a souffle. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I could try to do it on my own, but having a professional chef walk me through it, way better chance of success.
Huh. Perfect analogy. A good advisor can explain things in a way that actually makes sense, help you understand all that fine print, and really make sure you're making the best decisions for your goals. They can also help with that other concern the PDF brings up, liquidity.
Right, that whole fear of having your money locked up for years and not being able to get to it if you really need to.
Right, and while it's true that most annuities come with surrender periods and penalties for early withdrawals, there are often ways to access at least some of your money without those huge charges. Again, it comes down to understanding the specific annuity you're looking at.
So read the fine print. Don't be afraid to ask questions and make sure you're comfortable with that level of liquidity before you commit to anything. This PDF also mentions annuities being offered through some workplace retirement plans now. Is that something you're seeing more of?
Definitely. Legislation like the Secure Act has been a big driver of that, making retirement planning more accessible. What that means is that you might actually see an annuity as an investment option in your 401k, right alongside your usual stock and bond funds.
Oh, wow, interesting. So you might not even have to go out and find an annuity on your own. You might be able to just add it through your employer's plan. Sounds pretty convenient.
It can be, but, and this is important, you still need to do your homework, even if it's offered through a source you trust, like your employer. Don't assume it's right for you just because it's there. Compare those fees, understand exactly what kind of annuity it is, and make sure it really fits into your overall retirement plan.
It's like, don't just check the annuity box on autopilot.
Yeah.
Do your research. Make sure it's the right move for you. Any final thoughts for our listeners out there as they're trying to figure out this whole world of guaranteed income and planning for retirement?
We've covered a lot today. It's a lot to process. I think the biggest thing to remember is that planning for retirement, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Take your time, don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it, and find a plan that gives you confidence and peace of mind.
Such good advice to end on. It's been great breaking down all things annuities with you today. And to all of you listening, we hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of annuities and how they might play a role in your retirement. Until next time, happy planning.